Continue from Luke chapter 21. Remember, they're changing my voice. Then a cloud appeared and covered them, and a voice came from the cloud, "This is my son whom I love. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. They kept the matter to themselves, discussing what rising from the dead meant. So they're supposed to discuss the martial art order because in the story, Jesus had came back already, almost 2,000 years ago or so. They kept the matter to themselves, discussing what rising from the dead meant. And they asked him, "Why do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first?" Jesus replied, "To be sure, Elijah does come first and restore all things. Why then is it written that the Son of Man must suffer much and be rejected? But I tell you, Elijah has come, and they have done to him everything they wished, just as it is written about him. When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." He told them this parable: "Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is near." Okay, before I explain about the fig, which is key, and how it connects to fortresses, and how that the trees are fortresses, and the fig tree, is a type of fortress, right? So is your fortress, the tree of knowledge, or is it the tree of life, right? Obeying God in the divine order, right? So is it science, right? Worldly science, or is it the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, the Tree of Life, the Way, the Truth, and Life? It goes back to Nimrod was a mighty warrior before the Lord, Exodus 15:3. Okay, the Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name, so it's a warrior way. It is a warrior order. Ham begot Cush, Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod founded Babylon. Ham and champion C, Ham, Pi on, and Abraham. So they're pointing to this, right? It's in the words. We see cryptograms in the Bible, like Rahab standing for Egypt, and they point that out themselves on Bible Gateway, for example. So this is, you know, straightforward logic. There's no other way it could be, kind of stuff. But people are still lying about it, and the main trick they use is trying to avoid it and demonize black people because they know that the Messiah was going to be a black person. And it's me, and no one's going to be right with God after I die. There won't be another Messiah after I'm gone, black or otherwise. Okay. So they made it a little confusing when he said, Jesus asked a question there. If you look at the verses I just read where it says, "Why then is it written that the Son of Man must suffer and be rejected? But I tell you, Elijah has come." So they say in a way that's confusing. So don't worry about that part so much. This is a simple answer. Let's just focus on the fig trees, and once you understand that, you'll see what's going on clearly. You'll see why it's right to focus on the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, and the Bible is by Baal, who's Baal, who's Satan, who's a deity of mischief and rape by deception, and rape, forcible rape, and a deity of, confusion. Okay, we'll get to that. All right, so look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you will know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. So what is the fig tree that he's talking about, right? Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is near. Let's go to Micah 4, the mountain of the Lord. "In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and peoples will stream to it. Many nations will come and say, 'Come, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths.' The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem," right? In heaven, not on earth, right? If you look at it on earth, then you're a Satanist, right? Galatians 3 and Galatians 4 make it clear, right? It's Zion in the sky, it's the righteous, and it's not the Jews of the flesh. It's not Zion on the earth. It's not Jerusalem on the earth, because they're Satanists, right? They're in sin. Galatians 3 and Galatians 4 make it clear. Read them twice and take notes. You'll see that I'm right. There's no other way it could be. All right. "He will judge between many peoples and will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore." Why? Because they will pass over into the spiritual realm, and they won't be here in the first place. Okay? And I hate the way the Bible made it complex to explain why that is. But in a nutshell, Isaiah 66 does a good job to kind of explain it briefly. Isaiah in general, some parts where it says the earth will be completely destroyed, right? Heaven is my throne, earth is my footstool. So they're not talking about people training martial arts here, okay? They're talking about, that the people who pass over and they're right with God are no longer going to train martial arts, okay, and war arts and so on and so forth. Okay. Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken. The vine is the spirit, and the fig tree bears fruit as well, and clothes in Genesis were made out of figs. So let's go ahead and here's another reference I was going to use, where it talks about none of the early figs that I crave, but let's go ahead and go to this one because it's the most key fig connection that I found so far. I'm probably not going to go that much further digging for connections because this explains it well. It is, let's see here. So it's Nahum 3:12. All your fortresses are like fig trees with their first ripe fruit. When they are shaken, the figs fall into the mouth of the eater. Okay. Look at your troops, they are all weaklings. The gates of your land are wide open to your enemies. Fire has consumed the bars of your gates. So the fire from God consumes these people. They don't have the armor of God. That's part of what they're talking about with the fig trees. I go as far as say I don't like the Bible. I really don't like the Bible because of how much it was pain in the ass I made to explain this. Okay, but you see, let's go back there again, go over it real quickly, and let's wrap this thing up. It's starting to piss me off. Again, it's pissing off the most righteous person ever because they're making it confusing on purpose, and I have to underline and take all these notes. You know it's not the word of God. Okay. Where was I here? He told them this parable: look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is near. Okay. And it says let's just go ahead and go over that one, the other one too, where, so it's everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken. Okay, the vine is the spirit, the fig tree bears fruit as well, and clothes in Genesis were made out of figs. All the nations may walk in the name of their gods, but we will walk in the name of our Lord forever and ever. Micah 7. Okay, what misery is mine? I am like one who gathers summer fruit at the gleaning of the vineyard. There is no clusters of grapes to eat, none of the early figs that I crave, right? So we don't see the product of the fortress, right? The soldiers from the fortress. We don't see people training martial arts in the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order. So there's no figs, right? The fruit of the fig tree. We know them by their fruit, okay? You say again, how do you know it is referring to that? Because that goes back to Nahum 3:12. All your fortresses are like fig trees with their first ripe fruit. When they are shaken, the figs fall into the mouth of the eater. So let's go ahead and put 12 into context, and after that, enough of this fig tree stuff. Okay. Woe to the city of blood, full of lies, full of plunder, never without victims, the crack of whips, the clatter of wheels, galloping horses and jolting chariots, charging cavalry, flashing swords and glittering spears, many casualties, piles of dead bodies without number, people stumbling over the corpses, all because of the wanton lust of a prostitute alluring the mistress of sorceries who enslaved nations by her prostitutions and peoples by her witchcraft. Okay, so that's their fortress is prostitution, witchcraft, technology, the state, the corporations, allowed cultures, what have you, allowed by the devil on the planet Earth, and so on and so forth. I am against you, declares the Lord Almighty. I will lift your skirt over your face. I will show the nations your nakedness and the kingdoms your shame. I will pelt you with filth. I will treat you with contempt and make you a spectacle. All who see you will flee from you and say, Nineveh is in ruins. Who will mourn for her? Where can I find anyone to comfort you? Are you better than Thebes, situated on the Nile with water around her? The river was her defense, the waters her wall. Cush in Egypt were her boundless strength. Put in Libya were among her allies. Right, Cush, right? Ham begot Cush, Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod founded Babylon, it's a boundless strength, and it's the strength from God, but they weren't in the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, okay? So, as they rely on their strength, mere strength alone, it fails them. And that's what it's saying in the next verse where it says, yes, she was taken captive and went into exile. Her infants were basically, shredded into pieces at every street corner. Lots were cast for her nobles, and all her great men were put in chains. You too will become drunk. You will go into hiding and seek refuge from the enemy. All your fortresses are like fig trees with their first ripe fruit When they are shaken, the figs fall into the mouth of the eater. Look at your troops, they are all weaklings. The gates of your land are wide open to your enemies. Fires consume the bars of your gates. So you see how they're referring to the fortress. They put things in a very complex manner. And again, it's frustrating, so I'm just gonna skip over the next thing. It's talking about the martial arts spirit. It's comparing to locusts and grasshoppers and talking about throw merchants in there and so on and so forth. And it gets a bit confusing, but basically things come together in a kind of warrior kind of way, right? Babylon's an empire. They're sending their soldiers there. They're trading for the weapons they need to continue to go to war. So the merchants are a part of it. That's basically all that is. Revelation 6:12. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to the earth as figs dropped from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. Okay, so again, you see how it all connects together? All your forces are like fig trees with their first ripe fruit. When they are shaken, the figs fall into the mouth of the eater. So God shakes these people's fortress, what they sought refuge in, and the figs drop. Okay, and the strong wind, right? It talks about a scorching wind, the storm coming on a cloud, right? Lightning, hailstorm, lightning, thunder, hails, a flood, right? This is what they're referring to partially as the wrath of God. Now again, knowing this stuff means absolutely nothing. Okay, I'm not impressed in the slightest if you spent 60 years working on the Bible, like I figured out all the puzzles and pieced it together in a way that's better than you. Okay, this is like, trying to explain to you by trying to explain a fucking a jigsaw puzzle or something, but it's like a complicated puzzle based way to explain it. And it is annoying as hell, especially when you're fumed and persecuted by geeks who argue that your ability to understand the puzzle, when it's in, part of it is in Hebrew, right? It's translated from Hebrew, which is some of these Jewish nerds' language. Okay, it's pretty pathetic, right? And they bore no fruit of righteousness whatsoever. It's pretty frustrating when you consider all this going on, being shunned by attractive women, being persecuted and poisoned and fumed and hacked and all kinds of provocations, racial provocations, sexual harassment. Okay, but obviously my path is far greater than other people's. It's infinitely greater, and they're going out like some kind of sniveling worm every moment of every day while I'm manning up 10 toes down, what have you. All right. So let's just finish the chapter now. That's that about the figs. Again, the figs stand for the fortresses, and it connects to the warrior spirit and to who's obeying who, and commands, commandments, and chain of commands, and so on. So heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Be careful of your hearts. Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and not anxiety. And the anxiety. What the fuck? Okay, hold on. I have a bunch of typos here, but so let me just start over there with 33. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away, right? Heaven and earth will pass away. So the earth is going to pass over into the realm of the dead, okay? Be careful of your hearts. Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and the anxiety of lives. And the anxiety of life. I'm going to fume pretty heavily here. Let me just shoot this. And that day will close on you suddenly like a trap, for it will come on all those who live on the face of the whole earth. Be always on your watch and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man, that you'll be able to stand before me, okay, and not be some kind of wussy-ass bitch, right? Because it's saying watch out for the drunkenness and the carousing and the anxieties of life. Don't be a reveler, a drunkard, right? Some guy who's lazy, a sluggard, and don't be too scared, right? Don't be anxious. Oh, nums, what will happen? What will happen? Oh, my career? Oh, my family? Like some kind of sissy, right? Okay. And you have to be able to stand like a man before me and obey God through me. Each day Jesus was teaching at the temple, and each evening he went out to spend the night on the hill called the Mount of Olives. And all the people came early in the morning to hear him at the temple. So everyone sinks way lower for interfering with this. Okay, so that was the end of that chapter, Luke 21. Just real briefly, I want to touch on Habakkuk 3, and we'll wrap this video up. Okay, Habakkuk 3, verse 10. The mountains saw you and writhed. Torrents of water swept by, the deep roared and lifted its waves on high. Sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows, at the lightning of your flashing spear. Okay, at the lightning of your flashing spear. In wrath you strode through the earth, and in anger you threshed the nations. You came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of the land of wickedness. You stripped him from head to foot. With his own spear you pierced his head when his warrior stormed out to scatter us, gloating as though about to devour the wretched who were in hiding. You trample the sea with your horses, and so on and so forth. So it's saying, they even use the word stormed. And you see that I'm right.